Good morning and welcome to another conversation with Mose. And as always, I pray life is treating you well wherever you are in the world and that you're one day closer to your dreams and prayers coming true. Decided to do something a little different today. I'm not going to feature a poem, but I am going to feature a quote. And this quote is from the book, The Miseducation of the Negro. And it's available where books are sold. You cannot serve people by giving them orders as to what to do. The real servant of the people must live among them, think with them, feel for them, and die for them. And I was trying to figure out what quote or what poem to share with you guys, but I kind of felt like that quote was pretty fitting for the theme for today or for the subject matter. And I had been toying with this subject for a while, and to be honest with you, I wasn't sure I was going to go with this particular subject because I was kind of scared of the repercussions that may occur by talking about such a sensitive topic. But it seems to keep coming back to me. But that quote pretty much sums up how I feel when it comes to representation and work, the workplace, and I guess the atmosphere I feel like I've been in, and the belief in me and the support I feel that I don't receive in the workplace, personally, professionally, just things that I feel like could be different. So I'm just going to get right into it. And my subject for the matter today is I Am Not Your Negro, Oklahoma versus Georgia. And as I said, I'm just going to be transparent and I'm going to leave in the mistakes. And, if I make any, I'm just going to try to be as honest as I can be. But I want to go back for a second and talk about the slap, the Will Smith slap. And you have to go, I'm going somewhere with this. Well, I hadn't really talked about it publicly about the whole situation with him slapping Chris Rock. And I remember watching it like everybody else, and I felt some kind of way about it in terms of, I like and respect both Chris and Will Smith. But I have to say that I look at Will Smith quite differently now. I still respect his work and I respect his craft and so on and so forth. But we're the same age. Matter of fact, I think I'm a few months older than Will. But he'll be 55 as well this year. So my concern, the reason it bothered me is because, I do realize that money doesn't change. People still have problems and so on and so forth. And I totally get that. So I'm not going there. It has nothing to do with his success. Not directly, but being a black man that has to deal with certain struggles, who still works in corporate America, who still has to keep his cool, as they say. I was offended because I have a temper myself. I do. I mean, I've never slapped anybody. I've never done that. But I've always had a temper my whole life. So I've always had to kind of remain in control. And it took me years to learn how to control my temper, and I'm still learning how to do that. But with prayer and faith and having the right people around me, I've been able to maintain that. But I feel like he had an opportunity to remain in self-control, and that could have waited. He could have addressed that issue differently. So I feel like you let your temper get the best of you, and you're in a really great position. Not to say that he didn't have a right to feel the way he felt or he couldn't have addressed it, but I just felt like coming from somebody who's lost control throughout his life, people never forget that. They never forget when they saw you that way or when they saw you lose your cool or, and I have a different take on, I'm just not I'm not proud of those moments when I've lost my cool. And sometimes it is justified. But I would never slap another black man on television. I mean, no matter how angry I was. But again, I still respect Will. I think there's a lot going on there. eternally, and I hope that he addresses it, because I think there are a lot of black men that don't have the same resources and finances that he have, that we have to struggle. We have to control our temper every day. I mean, some of us have to. It kills you not to be able to speak up on some things. Like it bothers me that I have to kind of remain quiet about some things. But fast forwarding to the subject, I really want to talk about, since I moved to Oklahoma, and I really kind of had, bits and pieces of the conversation I've shared with you guys since I've been here. First, let me say, I'm dedicating this particular podcast to the people that may decide to move, or you're ready to make a move out of your state or just to a different location. I want to encourage you to do that. If you're in a space where you want to move, this is not to say I have regrets. I really want you to move. Do your research, where you're going, and, see if it's something you can do. But I say make the leap. Take the leap of faith and do what you feel comfortable doing. Don't let anybody discourage you from moving if that's what you want to do first, because I have no regrets about moving. But it is also about timing, because when I moved to Oklahoma from Georgia, COVID happened. It was the Trump transition from Biden, from Trump to Biden, that was happening. The political atmosphere was pretty high. So I moved at a really pivotal time for the country. And like I said, it was just timing. I don't know. And that was going to happen whether I stayed in Georgia or not. Those things were going to happen. Because like I said, the political climate changed. COVID happened. So there were a lot of challenges out of the gate that I had to contend with that I didn't foresee. Financially, personally, professionally, a lot of things it was a whirlwind. I lost my grandmother during that time. So it was really, like I said, a challenging time. So going to work in that atmosphere in a new state has been challenging. But I want to talk about the differences between Georgia and Oklahoma, and even Ohio, to be honest, if I don't want to throw that in there. But I only lived in Ohio. I was born and raised in Ohio, so I don't really know what life would have been like past 18. Because my family still lives there, but I've never lived in Ohio as an adult. But anyway, I've just found it very interesting. I lived in Georgia for 32 years, and I definitely had my share of experiences, being stopped by the police and, just being harassed on different jobs. And it's just been interesting. The racism in Georgia was very, I don't want to say secretive. When you got outside these city limits of Atlanta, then it got a little bit, when you went into the country, it was a little bit more blatant than the city, but still very subtle. It's like not as upfront as it is in Oklahoma. And the sad thing about Georgia was very deceptive to me. Like there were people, blacks and whites, that were pretending to be something that they weren't. And I think that was the biggest challenge for me, was I believed that people were who they said they were. And especially with jobs, like managers that, told me things, they wanted to see me grow with the company. They wanted to pour into me, but they were just using me for my gifts, because I can count many times that I trained white counterparts for positions that I applied for. And I was always getting turned down or saying, well, you need this or that. But I was always training people that were going to replace me or get the position that I wanted. And this was happening in my early 20s. And it didn't make sense to me then. And I was younger then, but I didn't understand how. It wasn't blatant, but they would always try to sugarcoat it to make it seem like I was doing something great. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, but I'm not getting the money or the reward or the accolade, but I'm still training people. And it was a lot more subtle. Like I said, it wasn't as blatant. But Oklahoma, I have to admit, I've never felt so challenged culturally. As a state, it's very, very stuck in 1921, which is very weird for me to say. I've never felt so like challenged in terms of just engaging with Oklahomans. I don't hate the state. I think it's a very beautiful part of the country. It really is. It's just culturally, it's been really challenging for me because I feel like they have cultivated a culture here that is really hard for me to understand. It's I won't say it's wrong. It's extremely different than what I'm accustomed to. And their racism here is very unapologetic. I mean, very like in your face. And it's I gotta admit it's really created an anxiety for me that I think it is the timing of the country. I think it is where we are, but I don't know. It's very different, and there are different experiences that I've had as far as opportunities with jobs. Being an older black man, working with millennials in Oklahoma and other people my age has been really challenging. I mean, honestly, and you probably can hear the reluctance in my voice because I want to share some stories, but I'm so like have such trepidation because I feel like I'm gonna cut open a wound. I'm gonna pick at a wound. But I guess you're probably saying, but then why do the podcast? But I am going to talk about it. It's just one of those things that I'm really trying to. I'm also a praying man. So my faith has been challenged because I'm not a vengeful person. I'm not one of those people that likes to go around, vindictive, I got to get you back. I got to get the last word. No, I don't feel that, but I do feel like I need to speak up for myself. And also, we're in such a gun climate. I never felt, I'm still praying about getting a gun. I've never owned a gun, never talked about it, never thought about it. But we're in such a climate now that I'm actually still kind of up in the air about purchasing a gun. I don't even know if it's something that I want to do. But I promised myself if I ever did, I would go to a gun range. I'd learn how to use a gun and, to defend myself. But I never felt that before. And I'm really trying to, I feel like this part of my life, I'm changing into somebody that I never thought I would be, which makes me really feel bad for the people that maybe have families that have to defend themselves. They have to worry about their, other people. But again, the challenges have been more psychological because, what do you do when people really don't hide the fact that they just don't like you? They don't like your presence. They want to belittle you and you're working at a job. Since I've been in Oklahoma, I have had at least 3 jobs where I was the only black man in the office. The only one. And when I was in Georgia, it happened in my early 20s, but to be in Oklahoma, and I know the percentage of black Americans is low here, maybe 15%, if that. And I knew that before I moved here, but I hadn't been on a job where I was the only black man. I mean, the only one. And it was just challenging because they don't really, like, for example, I'll give you an example. When I first got here, they were celebrating 4th of July at a job that I was at. And everybody was dressed in flags. All the women and guys were wearing like all these different flag themed outfits celebrating 4th of July. And as a kid, I celebrated 4th of July with my family. But the older I got, I don't really celebrate it now. I just, I don't really, that's just my thing. I just don't celebrate it. But I asked my supervisor, why is everybody dressed up? What's going on? And she kind of gave me this look like, what do you mean? They're being patriotic. And I was like, oh, okay. And I could tell she was a little perturbed by the question, but I was just like, okay. I'd never really seen, in my office where I was, in Atlanta, I never saw that, people just dressing up. People might have a flag, in their office or something, but I never see people actually dress up in flag wear, for lack of a better word. And it was the beginning of my journey in saying, "Oh, okay, I'm not in Kansas anymore," so to speak. And then another situation happened when I was telling people I was from Georgia or from Atlanta. I would get these looks, and black people and white people would ask me, "Was I running from something? Why am I here?" And I said I just wanted to change. I just wanted to do something different. I lived in Atlanta for 30 years. And I kept feeling like I had to explain it over and over. People would ask me, they would give me these, "Why are you moving to Oklahoma?" And then I thought, it's really none of your business. But I was trying to be, engaged and whatnot. And then I know a black guy had asked me, who was from Oklahoma, if I was running from something. Did I just get out of jail, or, what was I? Why was I really here? And I was looking at him like, well, first of all, what difference does it make? And then I was like, no, I'm not running from anybody. And then I still get that from people. They think I'm running from something. And I don't have a criminal background. I'm not saying my background is squeaky clean, but as far as the law is concerned, I've never broken any laws. I've never been to jail. I don't have kids out of wedlock. I don't have anything really in my background that's offensive in any kind of way. And my parents still live in Ohio. They're still together. I have a brother and sister. I grew up in a pretty modest life. So it's always baffling for people to see that, I'm somewhat educated in terms of at least how I speak, but it's one of those things that it was causing me anxiety because I was constantly having to defend myself, constantly explain why I'm not quote unquote ghetto or quote unquote the typical Negro. And which brings me to, I am not your Negro. To quote my favorite author, James Baldwin, I totally get it. But it's really made me more compassionate for other black men that have been treated the same way I get treated. And even the ones that have criminal backgrounds that are trying to get their lives together. How can they ever get their lives together if you're never going to let them forget? I get treated like a criminal and I'm not a criminal. So I can only imagine the magnitude of black men that are trying to do better with their lives, trying to make a change in their life for their kids, for themselves. But the world is constantly reminding you that you used to sell drugs or you killed somebody or you did this and you've paid your price to society, but you're still being reminded of it. You can't make but a certain amount of money because you've been convicted of a crime or, I get the laws and I'm not saying we need special treatment, but I know that the way the tide is turning, I feel like we're going backwards. We're getting treated more and more blatantly, disrespectfully. I really feel like that which gets back to my original statement about the temper. And I'm probably going to misquote this, but I apologize. I didn't write the quote down, but I know James Baldwin said to be an African American in America is to be enraged all the time. And when I first read that statement, I really felt like he understood, and that became my connection to James Baldwin because he understood the plight of being black in America. And honestly, I wish I had known more about him when I was younger because the fact that he was gay, he was a writer, and he was black, and he was very outspoken. And his birthday actually is a couple of days after mine. I felt like I could have been best friends with him in another life. I love that he was, and then I saw an interview with him. I think it was on CBS or 60 Minutes. And he was saying that he told people that he was gay so they wouldn't have anything over him, like no power over him, because he already knew that the black thing, being black, was an issue and they had power in that regard. So he wasn't giving anybody anything extra. And that's how I feel. Me being gay is, and what? I feel like I'm not as angry as I was, but I feel like it's my duty to speak for guys who are walking in my shoes. Everybody doesn't come from money. Everybody doesn't have the means to not have to work in certain circles, because it is challenging. The world is so ugly, and I literally have never felt so much compassion. And I do, for single dads, for people that are really trying to better their lives, going back to school, and you keep hitting these roadblocks. And with Oklahoma and even Georgia, I mean, I think the other part is people always say, well, Moj, you should just move. And I hate people giving that advice because, first of all, I did move. I didn't expect the challenges that I'm facing, but I don't have any regrets about moving. I really don't, because if I'd have stayed in Georgia, I would have never knew. I would have lived in fear of what if it doesn't work out? What if it doesn't work out? I think you have to do the move. You have to move, change jobs, whatever it is you need to do, because you'll never know. I don't believe in shoulda, woulda, coulda, because sometimes you got to make a change and you don't know what the outcome's going to be. And we still live in these United States, but as far as Georgia, the reason I left Georgia, one of the main reasons, first of all, I felt like I had outgrown the city. And I have a lot of great memories there that I'll never, ever forget. I have family there. But the biggest issue I had wasn't so much with the racism, but with the way I felt like black people treated each other. Because it is a Mecca city, very Mecca, very beautiful, successful black people. And my expectations were, as I grew older, it got more and more, I got mine, you get yours mentality. And I didn't understand that we couldn't help each other. It was like against the law to support. And then we couldn't come up together. Like black people can't come up. If you got a circle of people, of friends, you only got one or two people that are successful in the group. And you've heard me say this before about Jay-Z's quote, if you're the only successful person in your circle, then that's not a good circle. And I totally agree with that, because there was a lot of circles. It was almost like the black people wanted to feel superior to the people that weren't doing as well as them. And this was almost like a common thing, and putting people down. I remember an acquaintance of mine, I was trying to change jobs, and he's a educated young man, and we worked together. And I was telling him some of the issues I had about my job, and I was trying to change jobs. And he said, well, do you have your degree? And I was like, well, no, but I'm trying to, hopefully go back to school. And he said, well, they're going to just trash your resume anyway. They're just going to throw it away. And I'm looking at this guy, and I'm just, the way he said it, it was so dismissive and so like, well, they're not going to look at your resume anyway because you don't have a degree. And it was so nasty and condescending, and that I never spoke of that again. And matter of fact, I distanced myself from this particular acquaintance. And I got those conversations a lot. And then, like I said, the people that were trying to help me pretended would take credit for my work. So dealing with white people and their racism is one thing, but dealing with the backstabbing of your own people, that's a whole nother conversation. I'm not saying that Atlanta's, like I said, again, I'm not trying to discourage anybody from moving there. It's a wonderful city. I would just be mindful that everybody seems to be about themselves. And if you find a circle of friends and y'all want to lift each other up, keep them close. Keep those people close. I'm a firm believer. If you got a circle that's tight and y'all supporting each other, don't let nobody penetrate that. Because the world is ugly. And if you're in a relationship that is solid, fight for that relationship. I mean, people are treacherous. And my first partner, may he rest in peace, actually told me to be mindful of people. He said he could tell I was very green and very impressionable. So he said just be mindful of people. Pay attention, because people will hurt you. And I had to find out the hard way, that people can be, and again, I don't want this podcast to be like, I just want people to know that they're not alone, that you have to keep pushing for your tribe, for your circle, for your family, for your peace of mind, for your sanity. And like I said, I don't regret moving, but I do want to reach out to the people that are living in different places where you feel alone or you feel discouraged. You know why you're there. And don't let it break your spirit. Don't let it break your soul. Keep going, you know. And like I said, I'll probably do a part two to this one as well. But there is a difference between the states. But what I will say, it's made me stronger, much stronger, stronger than I thought I was ever capable of being. And it's made me closer to my partner. It's made me appreciate his support in ways that I've never thought I could. And my family, I love differently. I think differently. And it's brought out some things in me that, like I said, I never thought I would feel. But it's made me fight harder also. It's made me fight harder to rise above it. And I will have a testimony. I will. And I am thankful for the people that understand me, and I'm not crazy. Because for a long time I felt like I was crazy. Like, what's wrong with me? Like, all this anxiety I was feeling for. Like I said, racism wasn't new to me, but the blatantness was. I'm used to people hiding it or pretending like there's something else. But again, I just want to speak to those people that may be feeling the blunt of racism or the blunt of something that they have no control over. You're not crazy. But I say talk to somebody about it. Talk to your spouse, your partners, your friends. Be honest about what you're feeling. Because racism is a real thing. I mean, I think that it's like a disease. And sometimes you just can't ignore it. And I'm not saying do anything crazy. I'm just saying speak on it. Tell somebody that you're hurting, that you're angry. Don't hold that in. Don't hold that in. Call somebody, say something. And call the right person. I'm not going to tell you to just go to church or just pray about it. I'm saying talk to somebody. Because believe me, I've had so many experiences that this podcast wouldn't be long enough, that has really created true anxiety in me. To where, again, I've never felt like my life was in danger before. I've never felt like I had to look over my shoulder like I have these last 5 or 6 years, actually probably 10 years. And it's one of those things, again, I want people to take from this podcast that you don't have to suffer alone. And I don't want people to do things out of desperation, because we are living in desperate times. And like I said, I want to remain cool. I don't want anybody to make me lose my cool or my composure or my peace, because I'm older now and I can't have a heart attack because somebody called me a nigger. I can't. I have to find ways to rise above it. And because for a minute, I really feel like it was killing me inside to hold so much stuff in. And I'm grateful for podcasting. And as always, I do hope that you're able to follow and understand what I'm saying. I could try to polish this podcast and say, make it perfect and I'm just being honest. I'm a writer. I write the way I talk. So if you read my poetry, you'd see I'm pretty much the same person. But I don't have no big, deep words to say. I'm not going to quote a scripture. I'm not going to get deep. I'm just going to say, I understand, and to be, shit is real out here. And some of us can deal with it and some of us can't. Some of us have a harder time than others. But I just want to say that I don't regret the choices that I made, and I know God is still in control, and I know my future is still bright. But I want you to just kind of stay up and stay encouraged. And I'm not going to talk about other things today. I just really wanted to focus on the issues that we're having at hand and the issues that I'm struggling with, that you're not alone. And as always, I want to thank you for listening to a podcast with Mose. I appreciate your support immensely. And as always, I pray life is treating you well wherever you are in the world. and that you're one day closer to your dreams and prayers coming true. Thank you for listening.